Hey everybody, welcome into Outer Rhythm Fantasy Studios. I'm your host, Jamie, and I got my co-host Eli over there at the other side. Welcome on in.
Yeah.
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 Bobbing along, man.
Yes,
Killing it.
we are.
Uh,
but we have another spotlight for you guys, and we are going to cover LaJohntay Wester from the Colorado Buffs tonight.
Right there. Right there. I think I'm pointing. Yep. There he is. There he is.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy. I mean, the guy we're going to talk about. It might not be on a lot of people's radars right now, but I believe this will be a guy. I think he'll rise just a little bit more. I think people will take a look. He might, we'll kind of dive into him a little bit, and then when this recording is done and uploaded, and hopefully you guys can leave some comments down if you guys are actually like the guy or not. Don't like the guy.
Well, and there's a lot to like about LaJohntay Wester. He combine, little skinny, little small. Might not have run the 40 time I was expecting, but the guy, we're gonna get into him here in a second. Well worth the price of admission. You're gonna get a steal. Late day 3 of the draft. So be on the lookout. But in the meantime, as always, let me yeah, there we go. So we got both of our the old X, but we got both of our handles there. You can find us Outer Rhythm Fan Podcast. They're on Apple and Spotify. Love Spotify. I'll talk them up every day of the week, twice on Sunday. YouTube, you can find us on YouTube. Jay's always got a nice playlist for all these college spotlights. Go over there and check that out. The Discord, as always, Jamie's always putting in his 2 cents. And the little snap, not Snapchat, but the other snap, Instagram, Outer Rhythm Fan, we're on that as well.
Yeah. So you can find those.
I gotta take those Polaroids with those Thai lady boys.
But yeah, those are all of our social media handles. You can find us all right there.
Yes. And yes. Can we get into LaJohntay already?
Let's roll, as LA Knight would say.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of LA Knight, a lot of wrestling talk. I think that's what we can do a separate show on what's been going on in the wrestling world. Got John Cena turning heel and
shocker.
Seth Rollins and CM Punk. I think they're gonna fight at Mania, and Rock. What's Rock gonna do? So bunch of goodies going on in the wrestling world. But we keeps it football here. We keeps it football. LaJohntay Wester. Bam! There he is. Spotlight 2025 draft. Yes, I'm gonna combine this. You know why? Because why the hell not? We're gonna set the table here. Bam. We're gonna put this graphic up here. Bam. There we go. Boom. What are you drinking? You got some Ghost?
Yep.
Holding out on me.
Ghost Greens.
Ghost
Greens going on. Yep.
I love it. Well, you know what? I'm gonna start here with his rankings and some of the statistics. We'll get into some of our thoughts of him. Jay's gonna tag team back again. We're like the Nasty Boys, Steiner Brothers, Edge and Christian, whatever you want to call it. We're the tag team here. That's right. So PFF, I always use 3 different sources for the rankings for these guys that we do. I use PFF this time, NFL Draft Buzz, and CBS Sports. They all had him in like the 29 to 31 receiver range. Overall, 230-ish, somewhere in there. So it ends up being about a 7th round projected pick, because there's a bunch of teams that had him eyed in the 7th round. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there have been, Marcus Colston back in the day was a 7th round receiver, had a pretty damn good career with the Saints. Devon Bailey last year, 7th round pick with the Broncos, had a really good rookie year, I thought, for the low expectations that he had. He looked pretty good with Bo Nix there. So there have been some 7th round receivers that have hit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we talked about Bub Means too a little bit, and he came
Yeah.
in the, kind of the after second half of the season. So I mean, he's
Yeah, but yep, Bub Means, I think it was a 5th rounder, but yeah, you get our point. Like, some of these late round guys, they hit, just because some people they're down on him. It has nothing to do with his route running. Has nothing to do with his intangibles. I mean, the guy's versatile. He could be a kick return. I mean, he was an All-American kick returner 2 years ago in 2023. You know what I mean? He's also a first team AAC. When he was back with the Owls. So, LaJohntay Wester he's been hitting for years. I mean, this guy wasn't a 1-year wonder with Colorado. I mean, this guy was an absolute stud. He was the all-time receptions and yards leader at FAU. So, I think it's the size that they come after him for. So he's 5'10", 163. There have been skinny receivers. There still is. Devontae Smith from the Eagles. He's a little bit taller than LaJohntay, but he's got a slender build. Remember Deshaun Jackson back in the day from the Eagles and Bucks, and Deshaun Jackson wasn't exactly
the Redskins.
Washington there. What was Deshaun Jackson? Maybe 170 pounds, 175. Like he was
He was a burner.
Soaking
He
wet. He was thin.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But you put this guy in the slot, and that's where he's projected to be as an NFL receiver, as a slot guy. I think he'll be just fine. He's shifty. He's got a bunch of good stuff that I like. He's originally from Palmetto, Florida, so he's a Florida boy. Hence why he played at FAU. Probably left to go play with Dion and Shador and the whole Colorado experience. Don't blame him. I mean, why the hell not? Raise your profile and all of that. Some of the stats on the other graphic here, that's in front. He was actually a 0-star recruit coming out of high school. So I mean, this guy, nobody was looking at him.
Really?
Yeah. I was thinking maybe 3, maybe a 3-star, even maybe 4-star.
As far as I know, when I looked at 24/7
No, he was
they had him as a 3-star.
That's what I thought too. I looked it up. It's like, no, he had barely had any college interest. It probably.
That's weird.
I mean, FAU got him for 4 years. I mean,
really? I have to look this up now. I looked that up earlier.
He's the greatest receiver in the history of the program. And I mentioned he was the first team All-American punt returner there in 2023. Some of the comps here.
Gotcha. Yeah, as a prospect, 0 stars, but as a transfer, 3 stars.
Yeah. When he's a transfer, well, because he was one of the. I mean, he led the country with 108 receptions in 2023. I mean, he wasn't going to be a 0-star guy for a G5. He was probably the best G5 receiver. I mean, he was probably one of the best transfers or at least receiver wise in the class last year that Colorado picked up. So. Well, I mean, if you've been following, if you're a hardcore college football fan, you probably knew who LaJohntay Wester was when he was at FAU. Some of the comps here and Jay's are going to be different, and then if he has any thoughts on mine or if I have any thoughts on his, we'll bring those up. Yeah. I kept coming back to Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore, he's a little more bulky and not quite as tall. I think Elijah Moore is about 5'8", 185, 180, something like that. So he's a little. Little thicker, but just his career in college, he was elite when he was at Ole Miss, and the NFL side hasn't really panned out. I mean, he's had an okay career. He's been getting targets. I mean, he's a guy I think in an emergency in a 12-man or a 16-man league you could stick in for a week. If you had to go pick him up off the waiver or you had him deep on your bench or something. So I mean, Elijah Moore hasn't been a complete bust either, so he hasn't lived up to the hype of being a 2nd-round pick, but stats, not quite the punt returner, not quite the versatility that LaJohntay Wester has, but I could see a similar NFL stats to Elijah Moore. Some of the other comps I put, Jay, Calvin Austin from the Steelers, and a lot of these are slot guys. A lot of these are the shiftier slot guys. Anthony Gold from the Colts. To a lesser extent, he's still a young guy. We see if he's got anything in him, but Greg Dortch. I think we agree on that. Greg Dortch is definitely a comp, with the kick returning and kind of being a, maybe low end number 3, high end number 4 receiver in the NFL or receiver 4 for a team. not fantasy team, but just the team in general. And then Khalif Raymond from the Lions, another guy with a similar skill set, similar size. So those were the other comps that I had.
Kelvin,
Let me put up my. Oh, go ahead, Jay.
Kelvin Austin, he kind of intrigues me because I know I had a few shares of him off and on. I mean, he kind of hits and he's kind of a hit and miss at sometimes, but I mean, he's a intriguing prospect. That's for damn sure. Because I mean, and especially when you get into some of those deeper leagues, a guy like him that he comes very, very useful, for some of those. And I think we even mentioned him in one of our breakdowns on each division, and I think we mentioned about Kelvin Austin kind of being a guy that we all kind of liked just a little bit in the offense because there was no one else really there.
Yeah. With the who else they got? Huh? George Pickens. I mean, George Pickens is fine, but I mean, you start going down the Steelers depth chart, it's like Calvin Austin might be,
well, I mean,
Freiermuth, he might be their number 3 option.
I mean, they had Roman Wilson, but I mean, he wasn't even there.
No.
So the bad thing is, I have some shares of Roman Wilson.
I know you did. You were high on Roman.
So now
Roman Wilson.
So now I'm in the pickles of trying to get rid of him because I'm done and over it. Yep, I'm done and over it. But who knows? Maybe this guy, maybe Wester could be that that Roman Wilson fill-in maybe for a Steeler team or something. Who knows?
Yeah, possibly. Well, I mean, we'll see there. Calvin Austin definitely. Put this other one up, kind of his career stats here. And some of the landing spots, I'll get more to the landing spots. I have an expanded list on that, but we'll kind of just look at his stats here. So FAU for 3 years. He played a little bit in 2020 as well. He's a redshirt senior, basically. Like he's a fifth-year senior. I know 4 years, but he's got 4 years of stats. But he didn't play as much his freshman year, obviously. 2021, he had 94 targets. Nothing to, nothing slack about that. Over 700 yards, 4 touchdowns. 2022 did a little better. 102 targets, few more yards and 8 touchdowns. So he doubled his touchdowns. His final year there, which kind of put a mark on him, being like probably the elite receiver G5 guy that every program probably wanted. Bigger program, and Colorado ended up getting him, but 152 goddamn targets, 108 receptions, 11, almost 1,200 yards receiving, 8 touchdowns. I mean, just a damn good monster fantasy year. And then this past year, he was actually the number 23 fantasy receiver this year. So, I mean, 2 years back to back being a top 25 fantasy receiver, no shame in that. I mean, so he's been one of the better receivers in the country. He really has, especially the last 2 years. 94 targets, 74 receptions, a little over 900 yards, and those 10 touchdowns are very impressive. And I put the game log on the bottom. You can see the scroll on the bottom. You can see all of his different games. Few games he had 2 touchdowns, but he was very efficient. He was. Catch rate was almost 79%. So I mean, there are games he caught everything in sight.
Yeah.
I think he had 11. He had an 11 catch game, it was like I think it was 11 catch game, and he had like 12 targets or 11 targets. I mean that's incredible. Like he was catching everything in sight. Great route runner, shifty. We both think he's super undervalued. I don't know if that changed, and I don't know if the combine changed anybody's opinions on him. Yes, he's a little smaller. Yes, but he could be a dynamic playmaker, and we both feel that way too. Did you want me to do some of the landing spots, Jay, or do you want to tag in and get to getting on some of the fantasy side of this?
I mean, we can kind of make it. We can kind of mix in some of we can talk about some of the fantasy side. Well, just talk about. I guess let's get into team landing, then we can kind of sprinkle in some fantasy stuff in here.
Absolutely,
too, so,
absolutely. Yeah. So I'm gonna pull up.
While you're doing that, it was kind of funny to think about. The target percentages that he was kind of seeing. And if you average that out for that's 348 targets. In the last 3 seasons that he had, but if you average that out, that's almost 116 targets. A season. So I mean, he was very well involved in the offense. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Over the course of those 4 years, he's averaged 116 targets. Like, that's incredible. Like, for 4 years. So he's been a high volume guy for, and he didn't spend a couple years in FCS. He didn't. I mean, FAU isn't the best program known to man. I mean, but still, like,
I mean, they're average.
1 year at a Big 12 school, getting that many targets. I mean, he wasn't a 1 year wonder. I mean, this guy has been consistent, and I love to see it. I'm gonna, you know what? I put the Panthers at 1 because, I mean, they have needs. I mean, obviously the Panthers suck. Or they've sucked for years, but my reasoning: Adam Thielen's old. He's kind of the de facto slot guy now that he's 35. So Adam Thielen's kind of the slot guy. One of these years he's bound to get hurt or get traded or retire, or so you have a nice backup plan there. And I think with their young group of receivers, Xavier Legette, who they took last year, I think he showed some promise first year. David Moore kind of came out of nowhere. He's like their number 5 receiver or something, but David Moore impressed me a few times. So, I mean, this could be a good, and it's a cheap pick, for the Panthers. I mean, get him in the 7th round, get him with the pick 229. I mean, I like the value there. Number 2, we'll go with the Ravens. Quote the Raven, nevermore. Nevermore.
Holy fucking shit!
No, just looking at their list here. All 3 of their slot receivers are all free agents. Nelson Aguilar, Deontay Hardy, Steven Sims, whoever the hell that is. You know what I mean? They got some randos. You're telling me he couldn't beat out even Deontay Hardy? Let's say they signed like Chris Godwin, or I don't know. That's just a possibility. Let's say, I mean, Chris Godwin's one of the best slot receivers in the league, if not the best. Like, you're going to be a backup to Chris Godwin. You ain't beating out Chris Godwin. But, Baltimore, they let all those guys go. You get a 7th round guy, team him up with Zay Flowers. Maybe they let Mark Andrews go or trade Mark Andrews. I think they should. Isaiah Likely's a stud. Take another tight end. Ravens could kind of revamp this passing game. Get a young stud tight end early rounds. Come back, take LaJohntay Wester in the 7th.
Yeah, they probably more likely could. I just think the Ravens, it's this hardship, plays for a wide receiver to develop, only because they're always, they run, 2 tight end sets quite a bit, and it's hard to get, 3 wide receivers on the field, which is why a lot of times, you see a lot of these guys trading out from the Ravens, and which is why a lot of times I wasn't really, gung-ho on drafting a lot of Ravens wide receivers on top of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we knock Rashad Bateman, but it's like, do we really know how good or not good Rashad Bateman is? If you consider the Ravens offense, I mean, he did have 8 touchdowns last year. So
kind of a bounce back a little bit, I mean, still, with the years of him being injured and stuff like that, it's
So I just don't think it hurts. I think, if that slot position is open and and nothing else, you start him as a kick returner. I mean, LaJohntay Wester was one of the best kick returners in the country. So you start him as a kick returner. He works his way in. You use him as a gadget guy. There's a lot of creative ways a good team could use him. You know what I mean? Like, a bad team, he's got a chance to play. He's got Trey Tucker got a bunch of targets last year, for the Raiders. So.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And I believe that's only going to go up too. So I mean, who knows?
Exactly. I don't know how much better Trey Tucker is than LaJohntay Wester right now. He might not be at all. They might be even players. So, Dolphins put it 3. Let's see what they're looking at. They got Malik Washington. They took in the 6th round last year. He's a kid that we did a spotlight on. We both liked coming out from Virginia. Yeah. Malik's kind of he's kind of their penciled in starting slot receiver for 2025. So, it's not a world beating room. You're not trying to beat out you're not trying to beat out CeeDee Lamb here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, feet on this baby. Mr. Beast. I think he's got does he have a candy bar at Walmart, the Feastable?
Damn, dude, they're great. He has a peanut butter one, and I just like.
You've had those.
Dude, they're freaking delicious, man. They're great. I think I just picked up one last week, and I just opened it up and just
boy's doing well. He's a fucking entrepreneur.
Yeah.
We got the Dolphins there, 3 with Malik Washington. I think they're going to trade Tyreek, possibly. I don't know if they cut him. I mean, he's Tyreek Hill, but we'll wait and see on that. Coughing up that bullshit. Excuse me. Number 4, the Titans. Oh man, let's look at their depth chart. Let's see here. Tyler Boyd, free agent. Westbrook and Keene, free agent. Traylon Burks, nobody in the damn league wants him. So basically, you got Calvin Ridley. You got Calvin Ridley, and the rest of the receiving room is open. So I mean, they'd be a good landing spot for a Chris Godwin. Some T. Higgins, one of those kind of guys. I could see them signing one of those 2 guys. But you're gonna need some cheap labor. If you're gonna pay $30 million for a T. Higgins or a Chris Godwin, you're gonna need some cheap labor. Especially T. Higgins. If they go with T. Higgins, you're going to need a slot guy, because I don't think they're going to bring back Tyler Boyd.
No.
So and he's, I don't know at this point. I don't know how good Tyler Boyd is. I think he was made a lot by Joe Burrow and some of the Bengals. I think Andy Dalton was still there when he had a couple good years. So he had some good quarterbacks over there. I think they kind of made Tyler Boyd. So
they kind of got a almost slot guy-ish with Jaquan Jackson from Tulane last year, the kid they drafted. He was kind of in that similar role a little bit.
See how he develops. But I mean, it's a guy to compete with. I mean, it's a guy for if the kid from Tulane and bringing in a guy like LaJohntay Wester to compete for the slot job. I mean, it's wide open. Titans are junk, but I mean Could you imagine that going from being like some places have him as undrafted? They have him as an undrafted free agent, LaJohntay Wester, or 7th round pick. That's kind of what I'm thinking. To being a starting slot receiver in the NFL. Like how incredible would that be? Titans definitely open for that. Let's see, and then I put the Browns. I put the Browns at 5. Pick 257 there. Elijah Moore, who I said was his comp. Pretty much, like, he's a free agent. Browns are they're on the hook. Jay, like I was doing Sunday night, I was choking. They got too many. They're about to trade Myles Garrett. Can't afford him. They had to let some other. They're probably gonna let Nick Chubb walk. Nick Chubb ain't the same anymore with that injury, and Elijah Moore is probably gonna be another casualty. They need cheap labor. Because they're gonna probably take Cam Ward or Shador, first pick. They're still gonna be paying all that money to Deshaun Watson, so you're gonna need some cheap labor, guys that are playmakers. I like LaJohntay going to the Browns. There are some teams I consider. I mean, Denver, yes, but there was a couple teams I looked at. I don't even think they have a 7th round pick. So there was a couple teams I disqualified just because they didn't have a 7th round pick. They could use a slot receiver, but they didn't have a 7th round pick. And so I wanted to stay consistent. There might be a couple better fits in this top 5, but I was just going off of what we have now for information.
Sweetness. Yeah, no, I think I mean, they're the landing spots, there's for him to actually kind of blossom there. I mean, there's good chance for him to, get involved in some of these teams and whatnot, especially the Titans that are looking for, Baltimore. I mean, the Panthers more likely, yes, I could probably see that. But I have a few other things as well that I'll probably bring up with some team, just some team landing spots when I'm just kind of going through the kind of more of the fancy side of stuff over here. So we'll pop this on up and we will go from there.
There we go.
This guy is kind of intriguing guy. I mean, I was kind of surprised about this. I didn't think he was that useful. And then when I started digging into it, I'm like, dude, I mean, look at his explosive plays. He had over, 10 receptions of 20 plus yards, so I mean, that's awesome, so I mean, each game he was running over at least 20 some odd yards. I mean, think about that. I mean, it's almost a whole college season where this guy had, at least a reception in each game that was over 20 some odd yards. It's totally nuts. The red zone efficiency, I had to take a look back and see he had 16 receptions, 7 touchdowns, and I mean, they're at least a 30%, red zone efficiency in the red zone, which is, you know, if you think about that, you kind of look at it, you kind of do from like the 20, pretty much the 20-yard line and kind of see where they're at in the red zones and stuff like that, which you kind of do some metrics and stuff like that, and you figure that all out and how useful he is in the red zone. And, you can kind of see with him, his yards and his targets, and you can see why this guy was, pretty well a stout in the Colorado offense, being their wide receiver too. I mean, this guy was, about 6 receptions a game, so he was pretty much maximizing what he was getting with the receptions, so I mean, he was blowing it up. 16% of the buff targets, and his catch rate was 78%, so I mean, that is legit right there. We all
Jay, I was going to point this out. I love the fact that he had seven red zone touchdowns.
Yeah,
He was money. Absolute money.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, if it wasn't Travis Hunter, I mean, it was LaJohntay Wester or the other, John,
Jimmy Horn.
Yeah, Jimmy Horn, or they have one other guy too. But I mean, if you think about it, I mean, this guy was pretty much their wide receiver too in their offense. I mean, he's got, strengths and weaknesses. We kind of mentioned some of them. Got great ball handling skills. He's got the speed after the catch. Special teams. So I mean, if you're thinking about, if you're especially in leagues where you got the special teams, for yards for punt returns or kick returns, a guy like this will be useful in those kind of leagues as well. Elite quickness. He's got some great route running skills and stuff like that. And we could mention size, competition level. I mean, FAU probably you didn't really see a whole lot of that, but he kind of moved up with the buff. So maybe a little bit more, we've seen a little bit more of that with him playing some bigger schools. Limited physicality, and maybe, and then some of that could be, and also draft cap. It all depends on his landing spot and whatnot too, where a lot of that comes into play. But far as overall, like, dynasty and receiving value and NFL readiness, I kind of got him a little bit under 5. So pretty much, 5 across, 4 across the whole board. I just think, he's more of your taxi squad kind of stash kind of guy. I don't see him getting drafted unless, that kind of gets bumped up, especially when it comes to dynasty and stuff like that. So I think this guy would be someone you might be getting later after the draft, and you could probably get him in your taxi squad and whatnot before the season if that comes available. But it's funny that we talked about his receptions. I mean, that's pretty awesome too as well. I mean, 116 targets in 3 seasons. I mean, you're averaging that out. So I mean, we like that. I like that. And the plus sides, is target commands. He could be great in like a PPR special teams. So this leagues are rewarded for return yards and stuff like that. Far as draft, I know you were talking about some of the draft stuff too as well. Maybe day 2, maybe day 2, but more likely a day 3 kind of guy. So I mean, he teams that are needing kind of a shifty slot wide receiver. So here's 5 that I kind of think Colts for sure. Rams, Patriots, Chiefs, and Chargers. Are all good possibilities if he lands with some of these teams.
Yeah, Rams would be great.
Yep.
If they, I didn't think they had a 7th round pick from where I would just using my stuff, but yeah, Rams definitely.
Yeah,
especially if they trade Cooper Kupp, I think he'd be a nice.
Oh yeah, Cooper Kupp's gone. Yeah, he won't be there.
Tutu Atwell's been a kind of a bust. Like they're not. It's Puka. It's Puka, and then maybe a little bit DeMarcus Robinson. So they have room to bring, with Whittington, he solid rookie year, but not, people thought he was going to be the next coming of Puka, and not exactly. So the wide receiver 3 position with the Rams is wide open.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. But yeah, I mean, pretty much it comes down to if someone drafts him or not drafts him. But if somebody does draft him in day 3, this will be a guy you might want to take a look at, or at least have in the back of your mind to think about that, especially if the leagues I just mentioned, as far as special teams and stuff like that. A guy like that in those situations is great, because I think he's had a a touchdown and some in the punt return or kick return. I can't remember which one, but he's gone back and had a few touchdowns in those areas. All right. So I'm gonna give you guys some, ceiling, mid, and some floors for Mr. Wester over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'll start with the floor. Eli had a Greg Dortch, so a special teamer, rotational slot with limited fantasy impact. So if he ends up on one of these teams where it's just bombarded with wide receivers and be hard, so he'd have to try to actually play his way in to actually make an impact, to kind of get past a guy like kind of his floor of Greg Dortch. Now, I don't know. Who do you think I got as a mid guy? Huh? I don't know. Take a wild guess. And I'll see if you're pretty close or not.
Because I was looking at him too because he had similar production at UNC, and with the Colts, I don't know how good and how quick. Because I mean, Josh Downs, his first couple of years with the Colts have been damn good. I mean, not all pro or Pro Bowl level, but they've been very solid. And he was hurt one of those years too, so he would have easily had 1,000 yards that year. So, Josh Downs to me, I would assume is your comp there. And I was looking at him too. Similar stats, maybe a ceiling, maybe some kind of a ceiling for LaJohntay Wester, being a really good number 3 receiver. Like that's what Josh Downs is. He's a really good slot number 3 receiver.
Yeah, pretty much. Wester will be. He falls into a reliable slot target with PPR value, but he's kind of capped on the upside. So I mean, he probably maxed out, especially with other wide receivers being there. So I mean, his max, his ceiling would probably be that 500 or 600 yards per year kind of thing.
Yeah,
but maybe with some touchdown upside.
You get a crafty playmaker, and that like the Dolphins, they look kind of goofy there, but Mike McDaniel can draw up offense. Some of these, I mean, look at some of the formations the Ravens use. I mean, some of these teams, Shane Steichen was the Eagles guy from a few years ago. All the creative stuff he did, and so I mean, you got stuff you got coaches you can work with here. Stefanski with the Browns, he's a creative guy. Yeah, so they can come up with stuff for you got a freak talent like LaJohntay Wester. you make use of him.
Yeah. So this one's gonna be kind of crazy. People are like, "What? No way!" So Tank Dell as the ceiling. So undersized.
That's pretty high praise. I wouldn't go that far, but but Tank Dell was a 3rd round pick. People act like Tank Dell was a top 15 pick or something. No, he was a 3rd round pick out of Houston.
Yep. So pretty undersized but electric playmaker in the slot with wide receiver 2 fantasy upside. So I mean, Wester kind of falls in between a lot of these guys, and it will all depend on team landing spots too as well. And these are some ceilings, mid, and floor for Wester. And I it's kind of funny to think about when you kind of dive into some of these guys that I mean, Wester actually looked pretty damn good last year with the Buffalo, with the Buffs. And I mean, who knows? There might be somebody out there that kind of likes him. I mean, the combine maybe his 40 time maybe hurt, maybe just a smudge, but I mean, look at he's under 6 foot, so I mean, speedy guy, so I kind of dig him. I kind of like him.
Yeah. You're taking a light flyer on him. We're when we bring up the fantasy value for LaJohntay Wester, a lot of it is he's going to start out on the taxi squad.
Yeah,
he's going to be on. It's a fancy term for practice squad. So he'll be on your team's practice squad. And then if he produces or he wins a spot or he's just an electric kick returner and like, wow, we got to start getting this guy targets, which could very easily happen. He could very easily realistically start off as a team's kick returner, and then he's just so good, we got to get him targets. You're gonna pluck him right off that practice squad, right off that taxi squad, and he's gonna be on the active roster. He'll probably end up being on the bench. So I could see it. He's the guy that could jump, like Isaac Garendo. He was a guy that was probably on a lot of teams' taxi squads, and he jumped up to the bench because of his performance with the 49ers last year. I could see a similar thing with LaJohntay Wester. Like, we're not projecting he's going to be a starter year one, have 900 yards, 8 touchdowns. Like, that's not what we're saying. But he has the potential. If you're looking for, because we got to fill out these rosters, guys. We got to fill out these dynasty rosters. You got usually what, 4 spots in a taxi squad.
Yeah, give or take. Yeah.
So you got to fill those out with rookies usually. You got to fill those spots up, and LaJohntay Wester is going to be one of those 4. So
yeah, more than likely. Yeah, especially if he actually does get drafted in day 2, who knows? He might be a 4. He might be up in the. He might be drafted in the 4th round of a rookie draft.
Yeah, his stock might rise here. Like, that's we like to find these penny stocks, as we call them. Where it's like people are like kind of kicking them to the curb or something. It's like, no, this guy was he average. Let me repeat that. We said it earlier in the show. Let me repeat this, Jay, for these people. 116 targets for 4 years was his average. 116 targets.
Yeah,
like, seriously, like, that's number 1 or number 2 NFL receiver numbers. Like what they would average for a 4-year span. That's like,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I kind of had to average that out, and I was like, damn, dude. I mean, this guy
he got 16. Like, Travis Hunter won the fucking Heisman. You know what I mean? Like, his cohort had 15 receiving touchdowns, had like 25% of the target share. The fact that he even got to these numbers is incredible. Like, Travis Hunter was getting fed left and right. The fact that he got his numbers and Jimmy Horn got his, it just blows my mind how, like, that Colorado offense should have been all time.
Yeah,
they really should have been. The running back sucked, and that's probably what killed them. But tight end wasn't good either. But definitely had the quarterback and the receivers.
Yeah, pretty much. When you think about it, I mean, it's crazy to think about how many wide receivers and whatnot they had. Because I mean, the running back, it was meh. So I mean, all they could do is actually just toss the ball, and Sanders maybe scrambled a little bit. The running back kind of sucked, but I mean, hopefully that improves this year. But I mean, for me, Wester probably a taxi stash. After your rookie draft has happened, maybe you need to drop somebody else. Maybe and Wester is a add-on, and you can kind of see if something happens in spring, in training camps this fall and whatnot. If something rises, and you'll be the first guy to have this guy, so you never know what might happen. If it doesn't pan out, you can just easily drop the guy. It's not that hard.
Yeah. So this is a simple formula.
Yep.
Like I said, played at Colorado, Big 12 school, tore it up at the G5 school. Got good hands, runs good routes, shifty. Looks like the perfect NFL slot receiver. Even if you end up as a backup, like, he's going to be somebody's kick return. You're going to hear the name LaJohntay Wester. I will bet you money on
that. But yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed our college spotlights of LaJohntay Wester, and yeah, it was fun. It was intriguing. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, a lot of fun. We bang LaJohntay out. We'll see where we go from here. As always, come across this stuff, like, subscribe, help us out, share it with, if you have any friends that like college fantasy football or just fantasy football in general. I mean, we're prepping for the NFL. That's the whole point of this spotlight. Usually during the year, we do waivers, we do DFS stuff. We do stuff specifically college, but I mean, we're prepping these guys for the NFL because they're going to be on your teams. They're going to be on your fantasy teams. So if you know anybody that loves football, help spread the gospel. On all those different platforms there. And if you have any suggestions for players coming up next you feel strongly about, maybe Eftim Chisholm, he tore it up at the East-West Shrine Bowl, the receiver from Eastern Washington, a guy like that. Or maybe you want a bigger name. Maybe, hey guys, cover Cam Ward. I know we know everything about Cam Ward, but hey guys, cover Cam. I got to have Cam. Just let us know. We'll hook you up.
Yeah, for sure. We still got about a couple months away yet, so we're gonna try to pound out as many individual spotlights as we can for you guys, and yeah, it should be fantastic. But yeah, other than that, guys, I think it's time for us to wrap up and get the hell up out of here, and we will we'll catch you guys on our next college spotlight. So from Odd Rhythm, I'm Jamie. That's Eli. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Laters.